Right. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Area Rising Podcast. I'm your host, Esther Newton. I have an amazing guest with me tonight. But before I introduce her and tell you what we're going to be talking about tonight and what we're doing, let me tell you a little bit about Area Rising. For those who don't know, it's a movement that I started about 10 years ago for women and girls,
Awesome.
using the word Ariel, Ariel, which in the Hebrew tongue means lion or lioness of God. And the reason that I chose Ariel was because when I went to Africa some years ago, I had the opportunity, or they made me do it actually, to walk with lions.
Oh,
And I was
wow.
walking, yeah, we petted lions, we walked with lions. And so when it was my turn, every time I was supposed to get in the front of the line, I would sneak to the back because I said, I didn't come over here to play with no lions and have my remains sent back home to my family. Okay, I'm not
Right.
doing this. But he said, you have to do it. So I finally did walk with, there was a male lion on one side and the female lion on the other side. The male lion, as so many men do, he got a little tired of being with us because it was hot out there, sub-Saharan Africa. So he went rolled around in mud. The lioness continued to walk, right? And so one thing that I learned, as we'll tell you a little bit about Area Rising before we get to our amazing guest, but one thing I noticed when I first looked at her, and she reminded me of us, of women in general, because she was so beautiful. She was a beautiful animal, beautiful tawny coat, and beautiful eyes, beautiful but deadly dangerous creature as well.
Yeah.
But she was beautiful. And then when I got up the nerve to touch her, I could feel the softness of her coat, but I could feel those muscles and that brute strength underneath.
Mhm.
And then finally, again, like she was just beautiful and then vulnerable because as we were walking, and it was probably about 98 degrees that day, she finally went and rolled around in the mud puddle too, because it got hot. So I saw us in her. And I promised, I said to God, I said, God, if you don't let this animal kill me while I'm here, I'm going to find a way to incorporate this lioness into what I do from this day forward. And so this is how
Beautiful.
I came up with Ariel Rising, simply meaning, women rising up. I wrote a book released a book back in 2014 called Ariel Rising, where I interviewed 50 women from around the globe about they have overcome tremendous odds. You would have been a perfect one for Ariel Rising. They have overcome tremendous odds and then managed to be so super successful on the other end. Um, uh, one example, uh, one of them, she was gang raped and
Mhm.
she was left for dead pretty much. And you would think someone who goes through that type of trauma probably could not function very much after having gone through some of that. And the person that one of the people did that to her ended up being a serial killer as well, but she ended up starting one of the biggest youth organizations in Los Angeles.
Awesome.
And
Awesome.
and gotten into child trafficking and human trafficking
Mhm.
and all stuff. Amazing story. So that's how the whole thing was. I had Ray Charles' daughter was a part of it. Isaac from the Love Boat, his mom was one of them.
Mhm.
Nelson Mandela's ambassador to South Africa was a part of it. So all of these people, came in and told us stories like one, and then I'm gonna get to my guest. I promise you I'm gonna get to this lovely lady. One of them was a woman who, during the apartheid movement, women you're supposed to be seen and not heard.
Right.
Well, they wanted her to be a nurse or a teacher. Well, she wanted to be an activist during apartheid, and she decided to do that to speak out against injustice. And when she did, they wanted her life. And for 33 years, she could not return home to South Africa because they were looking to kill her. And
Wow.
finally, after those many years, she was able to go home. I call her Mama T now. Mama T is still alive. She's 86 years old.
Mhm.
And she wrote the foreword to one of my books, but her and Nelson Mandela were very close. In fact, she was in the hospital when Nelson Mandela died. So these are the people that have really had an impact on my life. And this is why I don't quit, because there's so much to do. And this is why we have this beautiful lady before us today, Lorie Savage. She has written a book about her own life. This is her memoir. And I could tell you that if you read this book, you will most definitely walk away feeling something that you felt that maybe you couldn't do before, or that you maybe try to block out of your mind. You can deal with all that But you just got to lay it in God's hands and let him do it and let him guide you through this. So this is what you're going to get, but you really need to get this book. Now, I'm going to say this before I start my interview with her. If you purchase her book, whether it's through Barnes and Noble, Amazon, any of the book retailers, and you send me, proof that you have purchased her book, then if you like audiobooks, I will give you a link to get a free audiobook of your choice on Amazon, because I want to help Lorie with her work here because I think it's so amazing. All right, so the first thing that I want to start is, well, let me go ahead and do this like I normally do it because I'm just ready to get into this. So good evening, family. Welcome to Area Rising, where we help women to find their roar. And that's another thing I like to help women and girls find their roar. What is that thing that makes you you? What is that purpose that's been put in you, your roar, your voice? And we seek light in the storms. Tonight's conversation is about deliverance. It's about deliverance, dignity, and the power of grace. And our guest, Lorie Savage, survived a childhood shadowed by addiction. She endured violence and prison, and yet, by the mercy of God and the hard work of recovery, she has rebuilt her life, and she now serves others as one that's doing amazing things in these days, and she's going to tell you all about that herself. And she is the author of Pulled Out for a Purpose. This is a story of transformation, and you will definitely feel, if you read that book, you're going to come away feeling differently than how you went in. So the first thing I want to ask you, Lorie, is tell us when you decided to go ahead and get this book project going.
Hello, everybody. I'm Lorie Savage. Nice to be here. Thank you so much for having me. It was about 6 or 7 years ago. I initially started out and made a documentary first, and that is on
Wow.
YouTube. And that was done in 2012, I believe. Um, my father had a son that I didn't know anything about, and we found each other after over 30 years. And he had this production company, and so we did a documentary in 2012. And so
Mm.
people always say, you need to write a book, you need to write a book, but my life is just so busy. I'm like, I don't have time for that. Um, and I was just thinking about it, and just another avenue to get the story out. Just another way that I could publish what God had done in my life. And so, like I said, it's been about 6 or 7 years we initially started the process to write the book.
Amazing. And see, I didn't even know about the documentary, but we're gonna have
Yeah.
to incorporate that too. So you can see for yourself the
Yeah.
hand of God on this woman's life. It is just totally, totally amazing. Um, Thinking back on your childhood, because that's the part I think that fascinated me the most, is how you were able to go through. You saw some things that impacted you, but I'm gonna
Yeah.
let you tell that. But my question is, during that time, what was there something that felt normal to you then that you later had to kind of unlearn?
Yeah, it I grew up in the hood, so to speak, the west side of Greenville. And so it was normal for us to see people using drugs, to be around drugs. It was just a normal thing. And in my home, my father was a heroin addict, and most of my family were addicted to something. If it wasn't alcohol, it was some form of drugs. And in my home, my mom is a loving, giving, caring person. So if you didn't have anywhere to go, you needed something, that was my home. So everybody would come to my house. My mother was a teenage mother herself. So at 16, she had my sister. So I think part of that was trying to live her life. So there were things that were going on in my home, with the parties, with my father being a heroin addict. There were people coming in, they were shooting up dope. My mother worked hard. She kept a 9 to 5 job. He worked, but eventually lost his job because of the substance use. So growing up in my home, it seemed normal. This is the way it seemed normal. And my neighbors had the same thing going on in their home because we're all
Wow.
living in the west side of Greenville, and this is what goes on there. Um, you could walk right outside the door and get the package. You can walk to
Wow.
the neighborhood corner store at a young age, and buy. You can pay somebody $1 to buy, wine for you. And so it was just my environment, and I became a part of my environment.
Wow. Wow. And so about what age were you when you started to use yourself?
About five, about
Oh
five
my
years old.
God. Wow.
Yeah. And like I said, my house was the party house. So they would have parties. My dad got paid on Thursdays. And so they would have parties at the house. You know, I used to sing at a young age. I was at entertainment. So if they're drunk, Mick, come on in here. My nickname is Mickey. Mick, come on in here and sing a song. So I would sing Denise Williams. And while everybody's drunk and they leave their little drinks on the table, I take me a sip. They leave their little joints around. I take me a puff.
Wow.
Um, Even the babysitters, would blow smoke in my face and get high from the secondhand smoke from the marijuana. So in that time, I believe they thought it was cute, you know, not even thinking about addiction like we see it now as a problem, like it was normal, not thinking that doing that to a child or allowing that to happen, that I would grow up to be an addict, you know. And so I don't think it was intentional, but I don't think they knew the ramifications of what was going on at the home. Um, yeah, round five.
Wow. What did that feel like, that first high as a child that young?
I can't even remember. I just remember what I was doing, but I do remember the time when I first noticed how I was able to escape what I was feeling. I can remember that. And I can say that was probably around 12. Because to pick up a drug is a choice. To become addicted, it's nobody says, I want to be a drug addict when I grow up. So
Right.
that wasn't my choice to be addicted, but picking up was my choice. And so when I realized that I could escape the pain, and the pain was from the abandonment from my dad, if he's going out and getting high, and I love my dad, um,
Mhm.
I felt abandoned. Or he would tell a lie like he would gonna take me to Disney World. We never got there because he would spend the money in drugs. So I felt abandonment. I felt rejection. My mom worked all the time. So I was left, in those days, you could go anywhere, and, just come back before it gets dark,
When that
and
street
so
light
I'm
came
out.
on.
Street light come on. So I'm out. They think I'm at the park playing. I'm at the park getting drunk. And so I realized at a young age that I could self-medicate by the alcohol and marijuana. Also in my neighborhood, I'm light skinned. And so I internalized a lot of things from my peers. You light bright, you half white, yellow banana, or you won this, you got this because they like you better, they like you more. And that wasn't just in the neighborhood, that was within my family. I'm the
Mhm.
baby. I'm the
Wow.
baby of my mother's children. I'm the youngest grandchild. And so it was always something. And so with that, I internalized that I'm bad. Um, I'm not good enough. Um, and it's how we perceive things and how we internalize things. And the enemy knew that. And so it was constant taunts to break me at a young age so that I could not reach where God wanted me to be. But
Mhm.
once I learned that I could get drunk, I could smoke this weed, and I didn't have to feel anymore, then that was something that I searched after. And I seeked after that thing because I didn't want to feel the way I felt. So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And so in reading your book yesterday, you yourself was became a young mother, right?
No, I had my daughter when I was my son when I was 23.
Just
So I
okay.
managed to not get pregnant, but uh, I was very promiscuous. Um, I prostitution. I did all of that. It was just by the grace of God. I didn't have a child at a young age. I did miscarry, but I was an adult when I did miscarry my first child.
Oh, wow.
But no.
Wow. Okay. So You're just talking about the promiscuity. Um, did that come as a result of the drug use and the alcohol, or was that just something in the environment?
I lost my virginity at age 12, and it wasn't by rape. It was by an older man, but it was, I plotted the whole thing. I wanted it, and not to say that he didn't take advantage of me and knew better.
Sure, sure.
But it was, I had planned on how it was going to happen and when it was going to happen and how I could set it up, how I could get in that place so it could happen. And I believe that was all it's searching for love, once again, searching for love, because like I said, it was around the age of 12 that I became an alcoholic. And so I think all of that during that time and finding out, that I could self medicate, and I'm saying, well, I can do this and be a grown woman now. If I'm grown, then maybe these feelings are going to leave me. I won't feel this hurt anymore. But I lost my virginity at the age of 12. And after that, I got into a relationship. My first, what I considered my first real love, that was, we went together for years. Love on my part, not love on his part. And I subjected myself to all kinds of, not any physical abuse at that time, but more so of buying his love, trying to buy his love, and still searching for the love that I think that I didn't receive from my dad or wanted. Um,
Mm,
that goes back to those daddy daughter issues that a lot of women face, that
yes,
can't
yes.
put a name to it, can't put a title to it. Um, but what we yearn and miss from our father, we look for it in other men, other things, and it corrupts our life.
Oh, this is good. This is good. Um, this is good. I say that this is good because it is so many people that are probably, so many young women particularly, that are probably in that same space now that you were in then, but they probably and afraid to tell anybody, afraid to talk to anybody.
Yeah.
So as you were going through these changes as a young girl, did you have such a person in your life that you could just lay all of that out, lay it bare about what was going on?
I have a first cousin. I have two first cousins that both of their name is Jill. And I talked to both of them, but nothing like, they didn't even know, one of them didn't even know that was drinking like that. We would drink together, but not even knowing that I was an alcoholic. Um, the other cousin, she knew that I had a problem, but I think both of them had their own issues too. But
Mhm.
I not nothing like I had, but I never really confided in them to really say the the deep issues that I was really facing. I don't think there was anybody around that I confided in like that to say, I'm hurting. This is,
Wow.
I got an inner wound that continues to bleed, and I don't know how to stop that. Um, we talk about bruises that, we have those ones that are on the outside, but nobody talks about those inner wounds that only God can heal. And um, there was nobody that I could confide in, nobody that I did confide in. There was nobody that I can even think of that I would think to go to confide in. And I think that is heartbreaking. Um,
Mm.
and that is the reason why I have created a space. One of the reasons why I had the girls group, so that we could have that space, because, and I started at the age 12. It starts at the age 12 that you can come, because I remember that was when I was going through my issues, but
Wow. Hmm.
so that they could have that safe space. And they know they can come to Miss Lorie, and, we got that space. And so, but no, I didn't, and a lot of times during that time, what's done in the house, stay in the house, you can't tell our
Yes,
business. You better not tell nobody. They're gonna break, all
yes.
of that,
Mhm.
in our culture.
In
And
our
I think,
culture. Hmm.
it's a hindrance, and it really destroys us worse than any drug could, because you're as sick as your secrets. So if I carry this secret for so many years, it only, contaminates me and destroy me on the inside, because I carry that, and it creates layer upon layer upon layer upon layer. And then I get here in my 50s and I'm dealing with all this stuff because I couldn't tell anybody, because you told me to
Mm.
shut up and don't say that, And that's why it's so important to create, even if you got a sisterhood, that somebody should be able to spill the beans and you be a garbage bag, trash can for some point of time
Mm,
for
mm,
them,
mm,
you know.
mm,
But anyway,
mm.
I don't know what the question was, but
No, no, no. You were hitting so much right there because it is so true that culturally things go on generation after generation, that we
yeah,
got to keep it within the boundaries of the family. You can't talk about this. You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
men in the family molesting girls when they're very young.
yeah, yeah,
Somebody
yeah.
get pregnant. Oh, they don't know who's the child is by and all
Right,
this stuff. And it's Uncle James over there who did it.
right.
So you're absolutely right about that because that just made me think about some other things too. But with
Yeah.
all this that was going on with you
Mhm.
as such a young girl, what was it like for you going to school?
I was always smart. I didn't really have to study. Now nowadays, now I gotta study because I've been killed so many brain cells with all the drugs I use. But then my dad was smart. He could just pick up an encyclopedia and just read it. And so I never missed school. Did great in school. Didn't have any behavior issues in school until I got into middle school. Uh, I got in fights in middle school. They would follow me home, get on my bus, get off the bus stop. I'm like, well, what's going on? And, get jumped. But academically, I never had issues in school. Um, I was able to graduate, but I wasn't thinking about college because I wanted to sit out and get high, you know. But I didn't have any issues in school as far as academics. Always did well in school, honors and college prep classes in school. Um, and just because that's the way God made me. But I would go out and get high, um, be there in school the next morning. It really
Oh,
got really bad in my 11th grade year. That's when I started to experiment with cocaine. Um, and my senior year, I was in full blown addiction, smoking crack. Just getting high. Just it was really. I just don't even know. It's just by the grace of God, yeah, that I graduated. Um, but I know that day I was lit. I was just so high. I can't even remember that. I can't even remember walking across the stage. Very,
wow.
I can't even remember that. Something that should be, in my memory as a great memory to just think
Yes,
about and tell my
yes.
children about. I can't tell you. I do know I was totally, you know, intoxicated, just inebriated.
Oh
um,
my
from
God.
that morning. I remember we got her all the time. We made it to graduation to walk and get our diploma, and it was back to getting high after that. Um, and I just can't, remember any, just a blur, you know.
Wow.
So yeah, but I
Oh
managed to
my God.
graduate high school, and I begged my dad, let me just sit out 1 year. I just want to sit out 1 year, and I'll go to college. I'm gonna go. Like, if you don't go now, you're never gonna go. I said, yes, I am. I'm gonna go. So I talked and convinced him, and that was 10 years later. It was 10 years of addiction before I was able to get back into school, get back on track because I was in addiction for 10 years. Yeah,
Yes. My God.
yeah,
That, you're talking about how you didn't even couldn't even
yeah,
recall your
yeah,
graduation. That to me shows that how that good and evil was at play even during that time.
yeah.
Because the enemy definitely wanted you, but God kept you to where he was unable to consume you.
Couldn't. I mean, he had. It reminds me of Job when you could do everything to her, but you can't kill her. you know,
That
you because he can do no more than what God allows. So
that's right.
God gave him permission to do that. I didn't understand any of that until we'll talk about that later. But another segment of my life, I didn't understand all of that until later on in my life, in my salvation, in my walk with God. But the whole time, God had His hands on me, and it was just that you can do whatever you want, but you just cannot kill her, you know.
Woo,
So
that one gave me goosebumps because,
yeah,
just thinking about how the enemy was just at you and you still was not consumed, you know that that is nothing that you were able to do or anybody else. That
No.
absolutely was God. Then I
Yeah.
have to wonder, so during that time, you know, your parents, how was your appearance during that time? Did people question, is something the matter with you? Why you look like that? Why is your hair not done? Why are you dressed like that? Did you have
Yeah.
those experiences?
Absolutely. Because during that time, when I was in full blown addiction, um, I wouldn't take a bath. I wouldn't come home for 2 weeks at a time. I wouldn't eat. So I had lost a lot of weight. In high school, I had started to gain weight, and even but my senior year, that's when my senior year. I'm trying to remember the dates, and maybe after my senior year, I started to lose the weight. Then, even though I was in addiction, I didn't start to lose the weight until I that summer when I graduated, and I was just every day off to the races, getting high. And then that's when I started to lose weight, and my mom was like, "What is going on?" And people would say, "You seen your daughter? You seen Nick? You seen her?" My hair, I don't know if you have a picture of the mugshot that I have, but that was what I looked like every day.
It's gonna be
I
when I edit, I'm gonna put that one in there.
Yeah, it's.
Hmm.
I mean, it in my family, like what in the world is going on? What? Even my conversation was just like, what is wrong with you? Everything was off, and they knew it because they knew who I was, and
Hmm.
so to see who I was and who I had become, it was, people would see me and just start crying. Friends of the family
Wow.
would see me out in the street and like crying. My family would come in carloads trying to get me to come home, looking at me like, this is not you. This cannot, I mean, this is not you. The great thing about it is my family's a loving family. They never disown me. They never say, you can't come here. They would come out in the street where I was and beg me to come home. I can remember a time I was in a crack house, and uh, they came like 6, 7 cars outside trying to get me out of the crack house. And if, you bring the heat to the crack house, you got to go. They was like, are
Right.
these people out there looking for you? I said, yeah, that's my family. Don't let them know I'm here. And one of the girls, she said, that's your family looking for you? I said, yeah. She said, I wish somebody would come looking for me. And
Mm, mm-mm.
at that time, I didn't even care about none of that. All I cared about was getting high, and I just snuck out the back door and ran. But my family always supported, even looking like in all the pictures that you see when they put as a drug addict, a crackhead, that was me. You could put the picture right beside that name, and I fit the description.
Wow.
Um, I would do anything, say anything. Nothing was off limits. I had no morals. I had no values. I had no convictions. It was my goal to get up in the morning. My goal was to get high for that day. And that was it. And everything else took the back seat. So yeah, I looked terrible. I looked like I looked terrible. Like I said, I had a friend of the family. He came, um didn't even really recognize me. He said, Mickey, and he just started crying. He said, let me take you home.
Wow.
Let me
Oh
let
my
me take you
gosh.
home. And he just started crying. I cussed him out, because he was in the way of me getting high. So I didn't care about his tears, which is a sad thing. But I, I I could just remember people coming out. My cousin, he would come out. He would sit on the curb and he would cry like, "Please let me take you home," because they knew that wasn't me, and what I was doing. I mean, I can remember just prostituting throughout the night. Um, and somebody would tell my family members, or tell my dad, your daughter is out in the street, doing this and that with this guy and that guy. And you're like, I know, no, she's not, And then when he would see me, he would confront me about it, and he would be so embarrassed about it. And he's still, getting high himself, but he would, he couldn't believe it. And I believe at some point he felt like it was his fault that I was doing it. At the end,
Oh man.
before he
Mm.
died, he got clean and sober before he died, and he felt, some bit of it was being his fault at the end, before he passed away. But yeah, I looked terrible. I looked like death
Wow.
warmed over. You know, the only thing that separated me from, I wouldn't even say it separated, but I always had a place to go. When I got tired, after 2 weeks, I had a home to go to. My mom always, never turned me away. She wanted me to get a bath, get some clean clothes, get some rest. She wouldn't let anybody bother me. And some people say it was enablement, but I believe it was the love of a mother that knew her child.
That
And it
part.
was her prayers that while I'm here, she never gave up on me because she knew that wasn't who she raised. She knew who I was. Underneath all of that, she knew who I was. Um, but I had somewhere to go to sleep, to eat, and to change my clothes. I had somewhere to go. I just had a choice that I wasn't gonna go because the drugs took center stage in my life. Yeah,
Mm. You're right. That's a mother's love, no matter what. I
yeah,
mean, I have two very adult kids, and I mean, they're not in situations like this, but I have
yeah,
always told them, even as adults, if they ever got in trouble, my door was gonna always be open to my
yeah,
kids. I might
yeah,
fuss and want to knock them upside the head.
yeah,
That door is gonna be open because I'd rather
yeah,
you come back to me than
yeah.
to get consumed out there. So how were you able to fund your habit?
Oh, okay. First, started out. I worked. I was able to. Okay, so when I went to prison, we'll talk about that too. But when I got home, I got a job working at a plant under what is it, for a temporary service,
Mm,
and doing good. I was a team lead on the job, but then I went back and relapsed and went back out and got high. But during that time, I was able to fund my habit through my job because we got paid every week. After that fell through, my mom was dating this guy. He was a drug dealer, but then we had what we, I had a supply that I had, and then I would go back and forth um, to New York, bringing drugs, and I would, get high from my own supply. And then when
mm,
it got to the point where I started getting high from my own supply and becoming more addicted to that and blowing the whole package, then I said, I don't have any money, I don't have any fun. I'm going out in the street and use my body to fund my habit. Um, and then, I didn't really realize I had a problem until that happened, until that started happening to uh, take my body and allow men to do what they want to do just so that I could get high.
wow.
Um, the first time, it was like, okay, cool. But when it started happening over and over and over and over again, um, I would get high just so that I could escape that moment so that I could get high.
Mm,
And all of that is the insanity of it. Um, but it was terrible. Because after the high is gone, then I got to face my feelings. Then
right.
high is gone, I don't have
Mhm.
anything to medicate, so I got to come down to reality and look at what I did trying to get this high that I don't feel it anymore. The high's gone, but I have all of this to look at. And do I want to get help? No, I think I'm gonna go back out and try it again the next day. That's all the insanity of the addiction. Um, it's just like I said, you have no morals, you have no values, everything is out the window. Nothing is left on the table for your life. It's just existing. You don't have a life. And all chasing behind that. And that's another way the enemy comes in. I'm going to strip you of who you are. I'm going to strip you of your identity because who you are would never do that. And just
Mm,
the enemy. I
mm.
just,
That was profound,
yeah,
but it is just so true. It's
yeah.
just so true. I mean, I see so much in your story that is just plain confirmation and truth that when God wants you, He gonna get you.
He's gonna get
Okay,
you.
that
When he
word
get
is
tired
not
of
going to
you doing,
return.
yeah, when he get tired of you acting like a fool, the time is up. The
That's
gig is
it.
up. All right,
But
I'll
in the
let you have
meantime,
your
he got
freedom.
that watchful eye.
Yeah, yeah,
I see what you're
yeah,
doing, but I'm
yeah,
gonna make sure it don't get too far because you're mine, regardless. I
yeah,
don't care what you're doing, you're
yeah,
still mine. Whew,
yeah,
that's some powerful stuff right there.
yeah,
That's some powerful stuff. So at some point, you ended up getting incarcerated.
yeah.
So talk to us about that.
So, In my addiction, after I stopped working at the plant, I just didn't work. My mom took care of me. I let men take care of me, and I met this guy. He was friends with my neighbor, and he kept saying, asking my neighbor, set me up with her. We lived across the street from each other. Tell her I want to date her. Like, no, I ain't got time. But he can bring me the drugs. I'll take that, but I don't want to date him. Eventually, I found out he had a good job. He had a good job. He had drugs. Okay, cool. Let's date. I started dating him, and I had my first child. I had my son by him. Um, we moved in together. He was a provider. He was a provider, but he was verbally abusive. And because he took care of me, he would say whatever he felt like saying to me. I was young at the time. I think I started dating him. I think he came to my 21st birthday party. So around 20 or 21, we started dating. We moved in together. He When we went to the house that night, before we went to our apartment, we were at my mom's house. We were getting high. Um, and my mom said, "You don't need to go home tonight. I don't think it's a good idea. You already been drinking, getting high, and we were already arguing." And so she said, "It's not a good idea." I said, "No, we're gonna be fine." Went home. My son was about 6 months old at the time. Went home to the apartment, and I think our the phone was cut off, or the cable was cut off, and so I went looking through his checkbook and saw he had written a check to this lady, and I was like, "Well, why are you writing a check to her?" Found out he was dating the lady and had a child by her, um,
Mm.
and yeah, and so that was like ding ding ding. So he started cussing, calling me all kinds of names, and I already made up in my mind if he said one more thing to me, I was gonna get it. So I went and got a knife, and he went and got a broom, and I stabbed him. I stabbed him in the heart. I thought I was stabbing him in the shoulder. He went into the bathroom and pulled the knife out. And when he came, I went, sat down, and continued to start drinking. My son, we never took him out of the car seat. When he came out of the bathroom, he pulled a knife out. Blood was everywhere coming out of his mouth. Like, you kill me, you stab me, trying to kill me, trying to kill me. And I still continued to drink and get high until he collapsed at the door. And then I knew it's serious. And so I just ran to everybody's house trying to get help. And, I got blood all over me, and they're not going to open the door for me, thinking I'm hollering and screaming. So all I knew was to come back to the house, check on him, and sit there and cry. I couldn't get any help. The phone was cut off at the time, couldn't call anybody. I don't think we had cell phones back then. It was back in the 90s then. Um, but my son was still in the car seat. And as God is my witness, there was a white man in all white that came to the door. He looked in, he left. And by the time he came back, the ambulance came, the coroner was there, Channel 9 News was there, sheriff, everybody, blue and white, everybody was there. Um, News people, everything. Um, and I asked if I could ride with him. He said, "No, you got to come with us." And so I said, "I got to call somebody to get my baby." So I called my cousin. She came and got him. They handcuffed me and put me in the police car, and took me to jail. That was my first experience of being locked up in jail on this cement floor. And when I woke up in the morning, I'm on this cold cement floor. And I thought that he was dead. All I knew, because I didn't know anything, didn't hear anything. So I'm just thinking that I had killed him. My aunt came from New York, I remember, and she bonded me out. And I remember my dad coming and saying, "He's not dead. He's not dead. You almost killed him." I said he had to have open heart surgery. But they wouldn't let me up there to the hospital because they didn't know the intent, and he was unconscious. He couldn't tell them anything. So they had guards outside the door and all of that. But my dad was able to go and check on everything. So when he did become conscious, my initial charge was attempted murder. Until he gained consciousness, my dad was able to go out and talk to him, and he sent for me. My son's father sent for me. I'm like, what in the world? So after he talked with them, told him, no, it wasn't that way. And I came to the hospital. He said, "Look what you did to me." He said, "Now give me a kiss." I was like, "Are you serious?" But it was his testimony that I was able to Um, they gave me a split sentence of 6 months in prison and half sentence to be on intensive probation when I got home because he came to court sick. He still has plates in his chest now. And he said, I really love her. I just want her to get some help. We have a child together. I just want her to get some help. So there was a big write up in the Daily Reflector. Man doesn't want girlfriend to go to prison because he loves her. Some old crazy mess, but
Oh
it
my
was a
God.
big write up. Yeah, but that was I went to prison and the charge was assault with a deadly weapon, inflicting serious injuries. On that split sentence, I did 6 months, came back on intensive probation, but I came back, did good few months, and went right back. Even went to a drug program inside prison. But
Mm.
because I kept violating my probation, I would go back and forth to jail. And so with that one charge, I only ever had that one charge, but I went to jail 5 times and prison twice. And
Wow.
yeah, the last time that I went to jail, I found out I was pregnant with my daughter. And so, well, this the next last time because I found out I was pregnant. So they said, well, if you're pregnant, they don't want to pay for a child in there. So they'll let you go home, try to see if you're gonna do right that time. So I got probation again. When I was 8 months pregnant, I still went out and got high. Not as much, but I still got high. At 8 months pregnant, I violated my probation. I just called them and said, you know what? Let me just go ahead and do my time. I don't even want to go before. I don't want to do any of this anymore. I'm tired. Just let me finish my probation. And I knew that I would have to be gone 2 years. And they're like, well, you're 8 months pregnant. You got it. If you do this, you're going to have to send your baby home. And so I went to prison.
Mm.
And like 2 days later, I gave birth to my daughter, handcuffed, shackled and all in the prison. And, in being a ward of the state, if you don't have anyone to come get your child, the state does. No, my mom, she wasn't having her. My dad came and got my daughter. And she was like a day or two old when they came and got her. So it was a day, she was one day old because I had one day to bond with her. And they came and got her. My mom and them raised her. I came back almost 2 years later. Um, I finished my time and did it, everything, but that charge was 5 times in jail and 2 times in prison. And the ironic thing about it is I went right back to that jail and was able to teach to the men and women substance use under Sheriff Dance. Amazing. Yeah.
Wow. So that pivot started to come happen at that
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
Okay. So one thing that's jumping out right now is throughout all of this addiction that you were going through, did it impact your babies?
Oh, absolutely. My son. Um, I used drugs with my son from day one, and up until I went into labor with him at the corner store. Um, Even at giving birth to him, he wasn't breathing. And my aunt, she was, rest her soul, she's his godmother. She was in the delivery room with me. And, when you have a baby, I didn't hear him cry. So I knew something was wrong immediately. And I kept, even though I was like I knew God. And I just prayed and prayed, God, please, I know I messed up, but please let my baby live. And, my aunt, she could see it in my eyes, like, oh my God, and she was just holding on to me and everything. And suddenly I heard him cry. And so I thank God he made it. He's what you would call a crack baby, but he's the most loving person I know. He's gone on to graduate high school, got his CDLs.
Oh,
Just a very loving young man. They never labeled him. He had a lot of behavior problems growing up. They want to label it ADHD, but we knew what it was. And he had to take medications up until he was in the 8th grade. Not on any medications now. Doing well, considering the fact all that he went through. Because every crack house I was in, he was in there with me.
mm,
When I was having guns placed in my back in those crack houses, he was in there with me in my belly, never like physically, but
wow.
going with me in
Mm,
these places. So, and even when after I had him, I can remember missing birthdays, and I remember his first birthday. I didn't even want to go home. The drug dealer had to tell me, it's your son's first birthday, and you're out here. You need to go home. Take him this. I forgot what she gave him, some candy or something to take him. But he was having a birthday party. My family was throwing him his first birthday party, and I wasn't even there. But I can remember um, his grandparents, his paternal grandparents, really raised him. Um, and I can remember they had dropped him off, for a little while, and I knew I was trying to get back out the street, but he hadn't seen me. So he refused. When they came back to get him, he refused to go with them. He cried to the top of his lungs. I said, okay, and I'm gonna, and he fought to not go to sleep because he was scared that when he woke up, I wouldn't be there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then there was another time I remember that he was holding on to my legs in the house because he knew if he let my leg go, I would leave. And I remember
Wow.
this. There's a memory in my mind right now when I think about it. It haunts me because it breaks my heart that I was leaving out the door and he was standing in the door crying, and I closed the door anyway. And it still rests on my heart that I knew he wanted me, and I chose to get high for my baby. And it
Oh,
still breaks my heart because and he, if nobody else don't love me, my son loved me.
I
And
feel
just
you.
to this day, there's nothing that I would do. And he tells Mom, I'm so proud of you because he's been there throughout the whole walk. But
Wow.
just that, but that memory of, and God has forgiven me, and he doesn't even remember it, but I remember him in that door and crying, and I still close that door on him, knowing that he wanted his mommy. And that breaks my heart still now because of the choice that I made, how powerful that addiction was, that I would choose that over my child. But my daughter, my mother raised her, and she calls my mom mom because that's who she bonded with. And we had a strained relationship. Even when I came home from prison, trying to build a relationship, she always looked at me like, "Who are you?" And then we had the enemy has always tried to sever that, even with her dad. And I don't know if you read that part where he sexually abused her. Um,
Yes.
you know,
Hmm.
there were, um, we have a good relationship, but it could be better. It could be better. Um, and with her, because she bonded with my mom, and then there were so many things that happened along the way, and her and my son are like night and day. Um, She's like, I don't, I'm forgiving is a hard thing for her. It's like, you did it to me. I don't care. I'm done.
Mm.
Um, so that's still a work in process with my daughter. Love her. She loves me, but I know that there's still work that can be done there
Sure.
to make
Sure.
it better. And the enemy has fought. I think the last blow was with the sexual abuse um, issue there. Yeah,
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I did read that part, and I was just thinking, with everything that you were going through, with that, did a part of you blame yourself
I
for that?
did. I did because I'm a therapist, and I hear this all the time. I have clients. I hear this. I hear this from parents all the time. Um, for me, it was this would never happen in my house, not under my roof, because I should know the signs. And at the time I was saying, well, there were no signs, but there were signs. There's always signs. I just didn't pick up on the signs
Hmm.
and would have
Hmm.
never thought that would happen under my roof. And then going back, replaying everything now, at that time I was in grad school. And I was going back in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. We were going every other weekend. We would stay 2 days and come back. And so she was here with her dad. And this is her dad, her biological father. Um, and I remember um, in the locks in our rooms, there's these keys. And then she would take all the keys and just take all the keys so that he couldn't get the keys to get into her room. Then she would come and sleep in my bedroom on the floor, and then they would sleep on the floor in their bedroom. My niece and nephew lived with us too, and so they would always do that. So I didn't think that she's doing that to get away from her dad. Um, then the window upstairs in her room, the screen was cut. I think she tried to jump out that window upstairs. Um, and I think one time I took her to school, she had written a letter and said she thinks that dad, I think dad is cheating on you. Um, and she was talking about herself, but she that's the only way how she knew how to say it. Um,
Wow.
yeah, and then when we did finally talk about it, she said that I didn't want to hurt you, you know, because when I found out about it and was told, it was no, I don't believe you. It was none of that. He got to go. I don't care what it is. I believe my daughter. Um, but she was trying to protect me, and she told one of the ministers at the church because they had a dance group. No. She told one of the girls in the dance group. All of them were close, and they told their mom, which is one of the girls' mom in the dance group. And then she told another minister, and then they came and shared it with me. And when I asked, they said, "Well, just go find her and ask so that she can tell you herself." When I did find her, she said, "Yes, he did." I said, "Do you mean
Mm-mm-mm.
actually penetrated you, had sex?" Yes. I said, "Now who?"
Oh,
I wanted
goodness.
to hear her actually say, it was her dad. Because I'm thinking it wasn't my son, it wasn't her granddad, never thinking her dad, that was the last thing. And one reason because I never heard that from him. He has a daughter himself. Um, you know, has a sister that she was the only daughter, the only girl in the family. Never heard that, but not to say it couldn't happen, but I believe my daughter. And after that, I and then we took her to the hospital, and because the female body it can heal itself, can't really tell. She did say that it happened, and we believed her. We got social service, got a police, everybody involved. Um, and then I had my mom to sit at the hospital with her, and I was on my way to his job. And I can tell you, I don't know what I would have did when I got there, but it won't be that good. And the Holy Spirit said, turn the car around, go back, be with your daughter. We got this. And I did. I did that. But in my mind, I was going to do something to him if I got there. But the Holy Spirit said, you go back and you take care of your daughter, and I got you. And later on, my daughter, she recanted her story. She said it didn't happen, so we couldn't
Mm.
press charges. Um, I think I put him out that night. I put all the clothes, everything out, got locks changed and everything, got the number changed. He kept calling her on the phone saying, "Tell him it didn't happen," all that. But she went back and recanted her story. She said, I think she just wanted it done with him out of the house. She didn't want to be questioned. And one of the reasons is because the detective came to her school and questioned her there without my permission. Yeah,
Wow.
without my permission, came to the school, questioned her there with her peers there. Who's gonna say that? So I was very upset about that. Like, who gave you permission? She's a minor. You're gonna question
Exactly.
her
Wow.
there. And so with that, my daughter, no, this I'm not. So, but I can tell you right now, he is suffering in a way that he can never imagine.
To this
He is
day.
to this day, he is suffering. He is suffering bad. He looks like death warmed over. Um,
Mm.
and I'm not wishing that on. I pray. I even pray for his salvation.
Sure,
But
sure.
I just know he's reaping a lot of what he has done. But we made it through that. But I do believe, she felt that, I should have known. Um, why didn't I know? Why didn't I know that this was going on? Um, and she loves her dad, and then it's hard to understand how can somebody I love hurt me in this way.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
you know, all of that. It was a tremendous blow to our family. It just really, I mean, was a tremendous blow. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy, because I was going through my own depression because one day I'm married, the next day I'm separated. One day, you find out your daughter, this your husband, that's the father to your daughter sexually abused her. Then you go through, when did this happen? Did it happen this day? Why didn't I know this? Where was I at when this happened? You know what? All of this is going on. And then there is this, it's my fault. I should have known better. How can you go to school? You study this, you work with clients day in, day out, you hear these stories, and how could that slide by you? And I do believe that may sound weird, but me and God got our own relationship, like personal
Sure.
thing. I For me, my husband probably could have slept with a man. I would have kept him because I want to make our marriage work. I want to be married. I wanted to just have a family and make it work. God knew that, but he knew that I wasn't going to accept this. That was a no. That was out. And I do believe that God was saying, it's time for you to do what I've called you to do. You're never going to do it because he's going to continue to say he's saved, he's living right. He's not. But this is the only thing that I'm going to get your attention with. I'm going to allow y'all to come out of this victorious. Uh, like I said before, my spiritual father, one of the great things that he taught me that I was able to make it through this was he said that the creation can never be greater than the creator. Even the devil is God's devil. He can do no more than what God allows. I rested in that. I was able to make it through just with that. When I told him what was going on, he told me that because, the devil couldn't do it unless God gave him permission to do it. So we were able, even though it was devastating, I went through depression, counseling, not wanting to kill myself, but I wanted to take him out. Just having to keep going and keeping my family going, having to go to work, having to still meet with clients. And even that happened on a Saturday. It was like September the 12th. And I remember going to church the next day because I had to be in his presence because I knew that was where I was going to get my strength from. That was the only way I was able to keep going. But I fought through that because I had to fight for my children. We had to fight, but it was one of the worst times of my life. It was worse than going to prison. It was worse than all of that because it was a hurt that it's just unexplainable. I just cannot explain that hurt that I felt, from all of that. It was just devastating. It was devastating. That
Mhm.
was like 13 years ago. 13 years ago. Yeah.
Wow, and that hasn't been that long ago, 13
No,
years.
no, no.
Wow, my goodness. Woo. Boy, you have been through some things. I, I'm just sitting here, just, as you're talking, and my mind is just, it's like playing out in a movie, just seeing all this. And just, and the thing that keeps resonating is no matter how low you got, how far down you went, it's like you were never consumed. That is just what keeps coming back to me.
Yeah.
He was never able to consume you. So
Yes.
one thing to get to this part where I was reading that really fascinated me was this issue about the Bible. Tell us about that. That Bible, somebody gifted you a Bible.
I don't remember that part. Tell me about it.
It was it was something about somebody gave you that Bible and you started studying from that Bible.
That was in prison. That was in
Uh-huh.
prison. I got a Bible, and it was the Amplified Bible.
Which is
It was
my favorite one.
yeah, and when I was in prison, they all different churches would come and bring us Bibles, and I got the Amplified Bible from that prison ministry that came in, and I studied that. I mean, that Bible was broke, it's bent down, torn up, and everything. But it was the first Bible that I got and studied it, and I brought it home with me. And it was then that I was able to build my relationship in prison. Even though I came out and relapsed and all that, my foundation in that prison was where I was able to, with that Bible in prison, was able to build my foundation because it was the Word of God. It was then that I started to study the Word of God. Every time they had a service, I was going there, and just to be able to have that amplified Bible, and to everything was plain and clear, and how God, He came alive to me in that prison, and I was
Mm.
able to, and I believe that was how I was able to stay alive in prison too, because people were dying in prison. They were getting beat up, they were getting drugged. The guards, I mean, it was just, hell in prison. But I believe it was the word of God that kept me from that amplified Bible that I got inside that prison, that amplified Bible. Yeah. Yeah.
Boy, I love that. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, I love that. So, at what point did you did it when you finally knew this is it, no more drugs, no more this stuff,
I
my
remember that
life
clearly.
has to get on a different path. At what point did
Mhm.
that happen and how did it happen?
Um, I was out one night. Well, 2 weeks prior, let me say this. I was out one night and I met this guy and he just looked weird. And but I figured that he had some drugs, and I said, let me try to get with him. Something happened, and he drove off, and you know, didn't see him anymore. During this time, I fell down, broke my arm, drunk.
Mm,
Didn't go to the hospital or anything, just still trying to get high. Seen the guy again. This is like 2 weeks later. Seen the guy again. Um, I said, okay. He said he had some drugs. I said, well, I got a friend. We can go to his house. So we walked to his house. My friend was like, I don't know him. I don't like something about him. He can't come in here. So I said, okay, we're going to go down to the park. And so we walked down to the park in the dugout. And we were in the dugout. I had a crack pipe, and I thought he was getting the drugs out to put on the pipe. But instead, he started strangling me in the dugout. Um, it's like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. Nobody knows where I am. My arm is broke. Can't fight them off. I wear glasses, and they, got lost in the shuffle. He didn't try to rape me. He wasn't saying anything. His only goal was to kill me. Um, and when I knew I was in trouble. Then I knew I was in trouble, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't scream. I couldn't do anything, but I could pray. And the prayer that we prayed, Lord, you get me out of this, I won't do it again. But I was sincere. I admit that thing, I'm done, and I believe that he felt my heart and believed me, because somehow, some way, I was able to get away from him. And when I realized he was on one side, I was on the other, I just kept saying, Jesus, Jesus. And every time, if I don't ever know it again, I knew it then, because he would back up. Every time I would call, he would back up. He backed up enough so that I could run to the fence. And like I said, I had glasses and they got lost in the shuffle. There was a yellow bar at the end of the fence. And I was able to jump that fence with my broke arm and my big hind part and jump the fence and get in the highway and wave down a car. And it was a nurse, and she took me to the hospital. And they did the examinations and all that. But I mean, I was in there, I was hollering and screaming. Everything, they had to put me in a separate room because I knew that I almost died. And they didn't understand. They thought I was crazy, but I knew that I was on my way to hell. He literally tried to kill me, and nobody could come to my rescue but Jesus. He came to me. And that's why people that feel like they've done so much that God can't hear them, he heard my sinner's prayer because I had the crack pipe in my hand. He saved me then. He delivered me then. All that time I had been using drugs, he took the taste out of my mouth. I didn't want any more drugs. That yearning that's in your belly that comes from addiction, it was gone. He just wiped it away. From that day to this day, there has been no desire, and it was nobody but the good hand of God. And it was like he just signed his name, on that night, and stamped it and said, I'm your strong deliverer. It's me. I came to the rescue. So there's nothing anybody, you can't tell me I'm gonna be addicted all my life. I'm gonna be an alcoholic. No, you won't. Because I know somebody. His name is Jesus. And I can say it. I can say it because it's the truth that sets you free. And that is why I tell my story, because I know I felt his presence. He overtook me. It's the anointing that destroys the yoke. The anointing was there that broke the chains of addiction on that night. And the
mm,
great
mm,
thing
mm.
about it that put the seal on it even more, because the next day or something, the boy walked by my house. I kept trying to tell the police that, it's him. That boy walked by my house. Hey, come get him. So they went and they got his ID. Heard on the news there was a lady that was strangled to death. Strangled. You don't hear that stuff in Greenville. I said, that boy tried to do that to me. That's him. Police, oh, we got this. Next week, we heard another lady, she was stabbed to death and buried in her backyard. I said, that's that guy. He did it. I said, because he tried to kill me. They finally listened and went and they put he was wanted on the news. He went to Raleigh to his family, and his family saw him on the news. They called the police, but they arrested him for both of those murders. He was a serial killer, and I would have been the first victim. And because I know that they are shut up in death, and I yet remain, and you think I ain't gonna bless him, you think I ain't gonna tell him what he has done for me, I know it was a good hand of God. Can't nobody tell me nothing, because those two women, he came for me first. And that's why I can be like Job. You can do everything to her, but you can't kill her.
You kill her.
That's why I know God favored me. He has covered me. He is yet keeping me, because I know that there won't nothing different about me and these ladies now. Both of them got high. We all did the same thing. The only thing is, God allowed me to live. I don't know why they in the grave, but I know I yet remain, and I owe him my life.
Mm, mm, mm.
Owe him my life. And people will say, I've been telling my story for 23 years. People say, oh, you gonna tell? I sure am, until the day I die.
Come on
Because
now.
I know who did it for me. He came to me. He's so real. I mean, his presence is so real. It can't nobody tell me no different about him, because I felt him, yet feeling him. And I know it's the anointing. I don't care what all this other stuff they talk about, the anointing, it destroys the yoke. And I know where I was, and he broke the chains of bondage on my life, still breaking up stuff, in my children, in my family, in my clients I serve. I love him. And I tell you what, I'm grateful. I am grateful. I am grateful. Yeah, that's how I said, this is it. That's how I said, that's enough. That,
It's
because I
super,
knew.
ooh, supernatural. I see, this is the kind of stuff that people need to hear,
Yeah.
because so often when something traumatic happens and first thing people say, where's God? Where was God at when this was going on? Why did he allow this to happen? But everything happens for a reason.
For a reason. For a reason.
And your life it's going to be a light, which is already is a light to so many people that are operating in darkness, because you've
Yeah.
been there and you were brought out
Yeah.
to have a broken arm and have
Yeah.
someone to attempt to kill you. You was absolutely supposed to have been gone, just
Gone.
gone.
Gone. Everything, the enemy had everything planned out. He had everything planned. How you gonna get out of this? Let me see you get out of this one.
Right, right, right.
He had everything mapped out, planned out. But he
He was
misunderestimated. He
clueless.
underestimated Jesus and the power of God.
I mean, I'm
He
just
can do
thinking about how you
anything.
said you thought he was getting ready to help you get high,
Yeah.
but he was
Yeah.
sent on a mission to
A
wipe
mission to
you
kill me.
out.
That was it. That was his only goal. That, because the reason why I know, because he wasn't saying anything, and I wish you could see this guy. He had a hoodie on. He looked like the devil. He just looked like he was sent from hell. I often go up on his profile in prison and see all the things he's still getting, things, infractions in the prison. None but the devil. Yeah, he's an imp. He was sent from hell to take me out. I know he was. I'm telling you, would get chills if you would even see him. But that's how the enemy will dangle things and that you like in front of you to lure you in.
To
And
lure
he
you in.
dangled those drugs to lure me into that dugout where he thought, with that dark place where he thought he could kill me. And I'm telling you, one year I went on my anniversary and I shouted in that dugout. I ain't got no real, no, no, I shout, but I did something that day. I went back to that
Lord,
place
have
that he
mercy.
tried to kill me. And I slapped him again. Yeah,
Lord, have mercy. Oh my gosh.
yeah.
See, this is what I'm talking about. This is how God does things.
Yeah, yeah.
People like to quote that scripture that God's word would not return back unto him unfulfilled or void.
Uh-huh.
This is that,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
he called you from the beginning.
yeah,
And
yeah,
although you went through all these twists and turns and turmoil and all this stuff, he
yeah.
brought you back full circle. And I'm sitting in front of you now. I'm looking at a lady that exudes Thanksgiving. You exude just change just your presence. And you're very beautiful, first of all.
Thank you.
You just exude confidence. All of that's like you wouldn't looking at you right now and talking to you, you wouldn't know. It would be hard for some people to believe, no, ain't no way in the world she went through all that and looking like this and able to stand and able to care for other people, to reach other people that may be going through something similar. Some people wouldn't be able to make that connection. But it couldn't have been nothing else but God. There's nothing else in
No,
this world, in this
nothing.
carnal world, with that
Nothing.
capability.
Nothing and nobody. If I give glory and honor to God because I knew it was Him, that is where the title pulled out for a purpose came from. Because
Perfect.
I was pulled out, snatched out
Hmm.
for a purpose. And the only reason why I remain is because there's something I got to do. People don't, what's my purpose? What's my purpose? What's my purpose? I don't know what my purpose is. Keep serving the Lord wherever you at. Keep serving the Lord where you at, and He will bring it to you. He will show you. Because I never in a million years, I want to be a teacher. I didn't think I would be ministering. That's the last thing. And it took me a long time to even answer that call. But I had to go through that because that's how He got me to this place. I would have never said, yeah, Lord, I'm ready to go. I would have never said yes had I not been pulled out for a purpose. And so He had to put that step. Look, it's me. It's me, your God, that did this. So we got some work to do now. Come on. I'm tired of playing with you. Come on. And
Wow.
so that is why I know before all this, I was, doing what I wanted to do, but there's purpose. There's a reason. There's a goal for everybody. Um, but I serve people, just serving wherever I am, just serving until He shows you. Keep walking and doing what you're doing, and God will show you. But He's showing little bits and pieces what you should be doing all along. Um, there's clues along the way. You just got to catch on to it. Now I know that. Didn't know it before, but there are little things that He shows you along the way to get you to where you need to be. His purpose, not what we want to do, but His purpose. Um, but all of it, everything that I do now, I see. Oh, that's why. Oh, that's why. I meet so many people. I get so many calls about people going through different things, family members going through this. And if I'm a witness, I can witness to that. I don't want to talk to anybody. And now, not to say anybody can't help you that haven't been through that, because I had therapists that were great, never went through anything I did because they had empathy. But if you can tell me how you made it through, you've been there, you've done that. I want to listen to you more. I want to hear that because you got the blueprint. You've been through it before, so you got the blueprint. So I thank God. I wouldn't wish any of that on my worst enemy, but it has helped to shape me to who I am. And I am my biggest tool in my practice, in ministry. I bring myself to the forefront. Most of the time when I'm asked to go somewhere and minister, they'll say, well, can you share your testimony too? Sure. And most of the time, even after I've ministered, it is because of my testimony. I just had to minister on Saturday, and I'm always clear. Do you want me to preach, or you want my testimony? What do you want when I come? Because if you got a preacher, I'm not going to disrespect the preacher. I'm going to do my testimony. But even after that, there were so many people that came after me sharing the testimony about I've been through the same thing, but I've never met anybody that went through and came out the other side. Can you help me? Because I was in prison too. Just
Mm-hmm.
people, they got a daughter. My daughter is addicted and I don't know what to do for her. Can you help her? And so I thank God, not, it wasn't like, I please raising my hand, let me go through this. But because I did, I've been my biggest tool to help people to overcome if they want it. Deliverance comes from God, but I can help you to make that decision that you want to make a change. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. Well, you know, you had to be that living, walking, breathing example and testimony of God's power, his unconditional love,
Yeah.
and when he has his hand on you, because you could tell people, well, if you got a habit or whatever, you need to go and do this and do that. You can just tell them, of course, even train people, even
Yeah,
professionals, they can just say, oh, yeah, this is what you need to do to
right.
handle that, to take care of that. But when you got somebody who's been there, done that, saw that,
Yeah,
experienced that,
yeah,
and can come raw like you have and show them how you went and hell, you've been there.
yeah, yeah,
And you can and show them how you
yeah,
came through all that darkness, all
yeah,
of that evil, all of that violence, all of that stuff. And you came through all of that because God had his hand on you and he had a purpose in your life and you had to walk in that purpose.
yeah.
And look at you now. There's not a battle scar on you that's visible
To God be
that
the
you have
glory.
fought these kind of battles.
He won't leave any residue, just like the Hebrew boys when they went through that fire. They couldn't see, you don't smell no smoke because
Mm,
God was
mm,
with them.
mm.
And he was with me in the fire. And he'll give you beautiful ashes. God knows he'll do it.
Beautiful ashes.
He will. He will do it.
That
He will
right
do
there. Whew. I could keep talking. We done been out 15 minutes. I could keep talking for the next 3 hours. You are just so amazing. You're so amazing. And I want to
it.
say I'm going to have Lauren to give her to tell you how you can purchase her work, purchase her book. And but I do want to say this that anybody that's listening, I think I said this at the beginning, that if you purchase her book, the first 10 people that let me know that you have purchased her book, and if you like audiobooks, I will ensure that you get to choose the audiobook of your choice. As a for me, thank you to Lorie for heeding God's call and just for being that shining example of what we need in the world today, because we do still have a lot of hurting people that just don't know how to come out of what they're in. They desire to, they may not have, someone, a support base that can help them. They just feel like they're in this world alone, just totally cloaked in darkness. But Lorie's testimony can show you that, it's only one way. I
Yeah.
mean, drugs, medications, psychiatric medications, that rehab, all of these things. But ultimately, if you want to get over all of this, is there's only one way to do it. And Lord, you tell them how that is.
That is through Jesus Christ.
It's the only
He
way.
is a strong deliverer. Just learn that Jehovah Mafalti, our deliverer, it comes from him. I am a therapist myself. I do not tell anybody, don't go see a therapist, please. But Jesus plus a therapist, Jesus plus that medication. People don't understand that addiction is a chronic brain disease. Your brain gets sick too. So you need to go see a doctor, but go see Dr. Jesus first. Okay. And
Ooh.
pray to God. Even in my sobriety, I don't have a desire to use, but there are situations that come my way where I say, Lord, if I go take me a drink, I don't have
Yeah,
a
I know.
desire for it, but you know what I'm saying? But
Right.
God is right there. God is right there. Every step, He is all you need. He is all you need, and He will rock you. He will keep you. He will sustain you. I'm telling you, Jesus is the best thing that ever happened to me. I don't look
Mm.
back. I just thank God that today I'm living. I would have never imagined my life to be so full. And I always thought I would be addicted. Always thought I never thought I could break free. But like I said, it's the anointing that destroys the yoke.
That's
And we
right.
overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. Every time I share, I break. I'm even more. I'm freer. Every time I share, it's so liberating. We just set free by it. And I just thank God. Never is it something else. If you got a story to tell and God has delivered you from it, I ain't talking about speaking from a place of brokenness, but speaking from a place of healing, share it with somebody. You never know what other people are going through and what they need to hear in that very moment. Never let the enemy muzzle your mouth. You got something to say. If he brought you out all right, tell it. Don't let nobody shut you down. I hear people say, I done heard that before. You tell it again. I'm going to tell it to the day I die.
Oh, I'm telling you.
I owe him. Yeah.
You do two things. I'll say real quickly as we wrap up, but I am so grateful that you said that about, if you need to take medication or seek therapy, do so. Because we also know that in our culture, and especially our faith community, a lot of times don't believe in that. And I know that for a fact. I was under
Yeah.
a ministry one time, and I told that this is when first I first got diagnosed with PTSD and
Mhm.
depression and anxiety and all stuff. Still suffer that stuff. I take
Yeah.
medication now for it.
Yeah.
But my pastor at that time told me you need to flush those pills and stop going there because all you need to do is just get on the altar. You just got to increase your faith. Your faith is just not where it should be. And, and I was like, okay, well, this is my spiritual leader told me I shouldn't be seeing therapists. I shouldn't be taking the meds. So I'm going to stop. And I did. And for a while, I did go into a dark place. But I'm glad that those things do have its place.
They
And
do.
we have to know that because just like God sends us physical doctors to treat our heart
Right.
disease and our diabetes and cancer and all that,
Exactly.
he sends people like you to
Mhm.
help those that are mentally ill,
Right. Right.
and you need that because it affects
Yeah.
each other. Your mental affects your
Oh,
physical affects your
all of it.
mental, and
All
so
of
it's
it.
all together. And then your testimony reminds me so much. And I'll make this last point. I remember interviewing Denise Matthews some years ago. She's the former protege of Prince, Vanity, the one who
Okay.
from
Okay.
Vanity Six.
Uh-huh.
I interviewed her. I used to be the news magazine editor of my church organization at the time, which was the Sounds of Praise.
Mhm.
And so we used to publish a monthly news magazine. And I used to have a few celebrities that I interviewed, but she was one. And in that interview, she told me she destroyed her body with drugs. That's why
Mhm.
your story, as you were talking, I was thinking about Denise.
Mhm.
Um, she destroyed her body with drugs so much so that she had to have dialysis 4 times a day. She
Wow.
had it because her kidneys were just completely shot.
Yeah.
And she was living alone. She was married to an NFL player for a while, and they divorced. And of
Mhm.
course, with her and Prince, they had their problems. I did ask her relationship with Prince was real. She was like,
Uh-huh.
"Yeah, we were just like anybody else. We fought, we made up, yeah."
Uh-huh.
But this is the thing that where I make the correlation between you and her. But in this case, she was living alone with her cat and her bird, and she passed out on the floor one day. She was on the floor for 3 days
Wow.
on her way out of here. And
Jesus.
somebody finally did a wellness check because they hadn't heard from her,
Uh-huh.
hadn't seen her. And when they saw her, they was taking her to the hospital, and she told me that she was able to say to God, if you would restore me, I
Mhm.
promise to serve you.
Yeah.
Because in that unconsciousness, I guess she had a visit from God.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
she said, if you would just restore me, I promise you, I will serve you. And she did. She became an evangelist and she
Wow.
evangelized all over the place because I was going to have her to come to my church. But everything she needed, she had to stay in her hotel room, had to be a certain way. The temperatures had to be a certain way. Had to have a
Uh-huh.
microwave, but she had to give herself dialysis.
Yeah.
But she had reached so rock bottom in her addiction that
Mhm.
she cried out to God, please, if you would spare me, I will
Mhm.
serve you. And she
Yeah.
remained an evangelist until she died. She died in 2016, just a few weeks before Prince. And it was to the point where I interviewed her once for our news magazine. I interviewed her again I had a radio show for about 9 years, and I had her on
Mhm.
my radio show. And then we started to have just one-on-one conversations.
Mhm.
And she told me this. She said, and she called me Denise. She said, Denise, I would never do anything to take my own life.
Mhm.
She said, but I'm ready to go. She said,
Mhm.
I'm just ready to go. I just think that, God has gotten out of me what he wanted to get. She said, she evangelized all over the world practically. And she said,
Wow.
I'm just so tired. I'm just ready to
Yeah.
go. But it'll be at his time. And when she said that to me, I remember feeling so sad because I was like, gosh, but you're doing so well. You're
Yeah.
going out, you're preaching the gospel, and, people no longer seek vanity. Because I even asked her, I said, or will you ever go back to in the entertainment industry? Will
Mhm.
you ever go back to acting or singing? And she said, no. She said, because that name that Prince gave me, Vanity, is
Mhm.
a dead thing. Vanity
Yeah.
means it's something that's dead. And she says, I'm not dead. I'm alive. So I would never go back into the industry. But
Mhm.
just thinking about how you went rock bottom, Denise went rock bottom, and
Mhm.
God brought her up long enough for
Yeah.
her to go evangelize and for people to
Yeah.
see her no longer as the
Yeah.
beautiful vanity, Prince's girlfriend. She was now
Uh-huh.
evangelist Denise Katrina Matthews,
That's
and
awesome.
she was powerful. So I just made that call. As you was talking, I was thinking about her and those last conversations that I had with her. And your story is equally as profound as hers was. And I am
Awesome.
so grateful that you agreed to come and share with me this part of your life. I got a lot of ideas going around in my head about how I'm going to promote this one. Um,
Amen.
how I'm going to promote not only this because I got somebody who's going to do the editing. He's real good at it. He's going to do a lot of
Okay.
fancy stuff with this editing.
Okay. Okay.
Um, and so I am just so grateful because even sitting here listening to you, you have fed me in the sense that you don't even know it.
Uh-huh.
Because I know there are so many things that God's calling me to do, and I'm just lazy. I'm just gonna tell you the truth about
I
it.
got you. I got
Just lazy.
you.
I know there's a lot of things I'm supposed to be doing.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, look, when I get in during the day, all I want to
Right.
do is put my feet up and just
Right.
scroll through and do some writing. So I'm still writing and stuff, but you have just really just fed me today and
Amen.
encouraged me so much. It's why I started Area Rising Empowerment podcast for that very reason. And I am so grateful to you, sis. I mean, I have seen you over the years. I've heard of your testimony. I should see you online. And it was that one day when you posted that mugshot when I just stood there and I was like, did you may not remember? I was like, this needs to be in a book because this right here, so many people need to see it.
Yes.
So many hurting people in our communities and our families. They need to see this walking miracle, this walking
Amen.
testimony, because that's exactly what you are. And I hope this is not going to be the last of our conversations. I'm telling you
No,
now,
no.
this is
Be
not going to
ready
be
whenever you
the last.
call.
Well, I got some ideas that I want to do for promotion, not only like I said for this interview, but also for your book. I want to keep
Wonderful.
helping to promote that because it's worth it. And we got to do that for each other.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not
Amen.
just Black women as sisters in Christ,
That's
all
right.
of that, because nobody will ever convince me that time is so close to being over. We can almost
Yeah.
reach out and touch it.
Right.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
It's almost over. And now
Yes.
is the time. If you got a ministry, you got to have that thing activated on
Right.
100.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
You got to do it. So, Lord, thank you. Thank you. Thank
Thank
you. I
you.
hope I didn't take up too much of your time.
Oh, you good. I enjoyed it. It's been a blessing.
You have been a blessing. So, thank you so much. As soon
Thank
as
you.
Thaddeus finishes up with all these edits, I will definitely get that to you to use as you wish.
All right.
And we'll make sure that I'll probably do a live too. I'll take some clips and break them down and do a live and present those clips on Facebook
Okay.
Live so other people can
Wonderful.
join us. So I got a lot of ideas that I'm going to do with this.
Do it.
So
Thank you so much.
anyway, thank you, sis. And I hope we'll talk again soon.
All right. Have a good night.
You too. All
Bye
right. Bye
bye.
bye.